This is WACK, coming to you live from the Londonderry Access Center. Hello. Welcome to WACK Today.
Today we have our top stories with Avery on worldwide medical issues,
Kayla with national news,
Jesse with sports,
Abby with the interview,
Andrew on an international crisis,
Austin with international news, also Abby with international,
and Deanna with local.
Wow, those sound super interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe we can learn a thing or two. Well, here we go.
Let's get to Avery with her story on guinea worm.
Thanks, Austin. Guinea worm is almost cured. What is guinea worm, you ask? Guinea worm is a waterborne disease currently contaminating the water in 4 countries in Africa. It all starts with a little water flea that carries the disease. If someone drinks the water and also happens to drink one of these fleas, they will soon be affected by the illness. Symptoms of guinea worm don't show until about a year later. According to TFK, a small worm then grows out of a blister found on your foot or leg. The worm can grow up to be 2 to 3 feet long and is yellow or white color. To get rid of guinea worm, you have to pull it out of your blister found on your left foot or leg a few centimeters each day. When you successfully get rid of the worm, you have to bandage your blister to avoid infection. Thankfully, the former President Jimmy Carter has founded the Carter Center. The Carter Center is here to help. Carter's team is traveling to Mali, Chad, South Sudan, and Ethiopia in hopes of wiping out the disease. They introduced a straw with cloth over it to the countries with guinea worm. If everyone drinks the water with the cloth and straw, the flea cannot reach their body. The Carter Center is not the only foundation helping to fight the war against guinea worm. Many other organizations have been working hard to get rid of this for good. And clearly their work has made an improvement because there were over 3.5 million cases found in 1963, and now there are only 126. That's a big difference. Back to you, Deanna.
Wow, I learned a lot about guinea worm.
I agree. It was very interesting.
And disgusting.
Agreed.
Now we have Kayla with a story on the Smarter Balance testing.
Thanks, Deanna. Kids don't normally like testing. What they think of this new test coming their way? Is it better or worse than other state standardized testing? Some may say it is easier to understand more than other tests. Smarter Balance Assessment is a test designed from the Common Core state standards. The curriculum our teachers are given to teach students is based around the Common Core standards, giving us a better understanding of what we might be faced with on the Smarter Balance Assessment test. Here's a question you might ask. What is the Smarter Balance Assessment Consortium? It is a service provided by a public institution that is governed by member state fees or territories that are funded with member state fees. It develops next-generation assessments to easily measure students' progress in educational settings. It also is for students to have a better future and a great career. What is the race for top assessment grants? From my research, it is said that in 2010, U.S. Department of Education awarded $330 million to 2 groups of states. It will provide families and teachers information to improve learning and teaching, assuring they will graduate from high school and college. This test supports the goal of providing more math for all students in high school. It uses updated curriculum to meet the skills of 21st century students that are integrated throughout the test. It holds all students accountable for the same standards. Common Core state standards support student success, helping them move forward during every school year. Did you know that New Hampshire was the 10th state in the U.S. to adopt these new standards? Back to you, Austin.
When we had our Smarter Balance test in April.
Yeah, that test went on a week and a half.
Now here's Jesse with sports.
Austin, football is one of the most popular sports in America. One thing a lot of people don't know is how football originated. Pro football began in 1892 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, when former Yale star William Pudge Heffelfinger was paid $500 to play in a single game for Allegheny. Over the next few decades, pro football has its ups and downs, as it was mostly played in small towns. According to ProFootballHallOfFame.com, the American Professional Football Association was then formed on September 17, 1920, when a group of men gathered together in Canton, Ohio, at the humble showroom of Ralph Hay, the owner of the hometown Bulldogs. The APFA only lasted 2 seasons until they changed the name in 1922 to the National Football League, which you know it as now the NFL. The NFL had 14 teams, which are referred to as now the original 14 teams. The teams were Arkin Pros, Buffalo, Canton Bulldogs, Chicago Tigers, Cleveland Indians, Columbus Panhandles, Danton Triangles, Chicago Bears, Detroit Heralds, Hammond Pros, Muncie Flyers, Arizona Cardinals, Rochester Jeffersons, and the Rock Island Independents. The sport of football has evolved so much that currently the NFL has over 30 teams, one being the winner of Super Bowl 49, the New England Patriots. Football will always be America's favorite sport. I know it's mine. Back to you, Austin.
Wow, I never knew all of that about the NFL.
I thought it was pretty informative.
Now we have Abby with the interview on Mr. A.
Thanks, Deanna. Here with me, I have an inspiring music teacher, Mr. Alberici, who created a program called Sound and Focus. Sound and Focus is a program designed to ensure young students and people obtain better listening and communication skills. Mr. A is the 29th winner of the Krista McAuliffe Sabbatical. Mr. Alberici is also the first music teacher to ever win the award. The Krista McAuliffe Sabbatical is an award given to educators in New Hampshire to honor Krista McAuliffe. Mr. A, would it be okay if I asked you a few questions?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
When did you realize that young people and students weren't listening and communicating?
I started to notice it in about 2008 or 2009. And being a music teacher, I noticed that young kids, I teach 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, and I noticed that my students at those age groups were starting to lose the ability to listen to a piece of music for a long period of time. So like their listening attention spans were getting shorter and shorter.
Okay.
So about 7 or 8 years ago.
Once you won the Krista McAuliffe Sabbatical Award, was creating Sound and Focus your first choice, and if not, what was it?
Well, it happened the other way around. I kind of created Sound and Focus, and then I applied for the award. I had to create the project as part of my application. So I went into the interview process knowing that if I had one, I would do this program throughout the school year. So it took me about 2 years of really working hard and kind of critical planning to plan and design the project. And then once I had the award, I spent the summer and all of September and October building it and acquiring and building all the equipment and scheduling it so I could take it out on the road. So it took about 2 years to actually get the whole thing up and running.
Cool. How did you learn about the science of hearing and sound?
Well, I've been teaching at Maple Street School for about 23 years, and the 4th grade teachers there do a unit on sound with their 4th grade students. And they started asking me a long time ago, because I'm the music teacher and I've always been fascinated about sound and how the ear works, they asked me if I would collaborate with them. So I started doing that, and during the weeks when they were teaching sound in class, I would do sound-based activities in 4th grade music class. So I've been kind of working on this for quite a long time in school and in my own classes.
Cool. What was your favorite invention you made and displayed at the assemblies, and which one took the longest to build?
I think they're both the same answer. The vortex cannon. The vortex cannon took a lot of design and planning. The idea for it came from my principal at my school. He had made vortex cannons out of small trash cans in the school and shown them to the kids. And he kind of drew up a design for me. And then I took the design to a welding company here in Concord that built the cannon for me. Actually, they built 2 of them. They built one for themselves as well. And working with the welding company, they did all the metal work, and then I did all the wooden parts and the moving parts and made them both functional. So that took, once we got to the welding company, it probably took about 6 to 8 weeks to actually fabricate them and paint them, and then, test fire them and make modifications to them. So it took about 8 weeks to get them up and running.
Wow, I really like that one too.
Yeah, that's been the favorite so far.
What made you interested in the Krista McAuliffe Sabbatical?
Well, I've always been a fan of space exploration and the space shuttle. And I remember when Krista McAuliffe died. I was in my sophomore year in high school, and I was in a math class when the teacher came in and told us that the shuttle had exploded. When I moved to Concord, I met a lot of people from the Concord area that had her as a teacher, and I knew about the sabbatical program. I've actually been wanting to apply for it for about 10 years. But it was never right. I have a family and young children, and we could never really find the best time to apply. And this year seemed like a great time. So I had been working on Sound and Focus, and I decided that this would be the year. So I went for it, and I interviewed. It was my first time ever applying for it, and I got it. So it was a thrill. It was very exciting.
Oh, nice. What are you going to be doing after your sabbatical time is finished?
Well, the part of the sabbatical is that after it's over, it's a 1-year sabbatical, and I can't do it again next year. But part of the actual rules of the sabbatical are that when it's over, I have to go back to my school and keep teaching there. So I hope to go back to my school. Actually, I've been talking to the principal about how I'm going to move back into my old position, because there's a substitute music teacher there right now. So I'll go back to Maple Street and continue to teach. A lot of the science experiments that I've built into Sound and Focus will go into my classroom, and the kids at Maple Street will see them from now on. The Vortex Cannon is actually going to go to a museum in Manchester. It's going to the Sea Science Center. They're going to be taking it on, I think, the end of June, and they're going to have it on display there. And one of the reasons I'm giving it to them is because it's so big, it won't really fit in my music room because I have a small room. So I thought it'd be great if kids could continue to see it. So the museum is taking it in June. So, but that's what I'm doing. I'm going to go back and be a teacher.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
How will you feel when your sabbatical ends?
It's kind of sad. I wish I could keep doing this. Abby, this has been a fantastic year. I've been to 20 different schools. I wish I could go to 20 or 40 more and continue to do this, but I've just kind of run out of time. I've been, since I left Londonderry, I've been in 10 different schools.
Wow.
And it's very interesting to go around and meet other teachers and see how different schools work. So it's kind of sad. I wish I could keep doing this, but the sabbatical is going to run out, and I've got to go back to work, which is kind of a bummer, but it's also kind of exciting.
Yeah. Can you explain the Chris McAuliffe sabbatical in a little more detail?
Sure. Okay, so when Krista McAuliffe passed away in, I think it was 1986, the state of New Hampshire started a program called the Krista McAuliffe Sabbatical, and they take applicants from teachers all over the state. There are some requirements of you have to be a teacher for, I think, 10 years or more. So teachers apply from all over New Hampshire, and they pick one, and the project is sponsored by the state of New Hampshire. The teacher gets an entire year off, and they pay for your salary, so you do get paid through the sabbatical, which is wonderful. But they also pay for your program, and I designed Sound and Focus, so the sabbatical program pays for my expenses when I travel, and for me to buy all the equipment and to build a Vortex Cannon. It really has been like a kid in a candy store. If you can imagine, walking into a candy store and being able to take whatever you want, that's what it's been like. It's just been a fantastic experience. It's allowed me to be really creative and to kind of do whatever I want and do whatever it takes to teach kids about sound. And it's just been a thrill. It's been a real thrill. And more teachers need to apply for this, because very few teachers actually know about the program. So as I've gone around New Hampshire, I've been encouraging teachers to apply, because it's like a dream come true for a teacher. So,
When you're not visiting schools, what are you doing?
I have a family that keeps me busy. I ride my bike a lot. That's probably my big hobby. I play some golf. My son plays hockey in the wintertime, so I'm driving him around America to play hockey games. My daughter rides horses, and I'm often at the barn with her watching her ride. And both my kids play instruments too, so I'm often teaching Zoe how to play flute and my son how to play saxophone. So we do a lot of outdoor activities. We kayak, we climb, we go camping and stuff like that too. So I've got a lot of things to keep me busy.
Nice. Thank you, Mr. Alberici, for your time. This was very interesting.
Absolutely. I'm glad you liked it, Abby.
Back to you, Austin.
He's very creative.
He's different, in a good way, though.
Here's Andrew on an international crisis.
Thanks, Austin. There are strong arguments on both sides of the debate about global warming. Global warming, also known as climate change and climate disruption, has been a worry of many. Even President Obama himself tweeted that 97% of scientists agree that global warming is real and completely man-made. Most of us think global warming is endangering our Earth, but LiveScience.com says that from 1979 to 2014, temperatures have only risen 0.36 degrees Fahrenheit, and since then, temperatures have actually been dropping. At the same time, heat waves have hit our ice caps, and scientists argue that, if not global warming, what is causing beaches to flood? But leaked emails from climatologists state that the Earth is not warming, but cooling, such as the one from Kevin E. Tremberth of the National Center for Atmospheric Research that says, "The fact is we can't account for the lack of warming on this planet, and it is a travesty we can't. It's impossible to ignore the polar ice caps melting. Hurricanes are doing way more damage, and yet people are saying global warming is not real. Who is right and who is wrong? The debate rages on." Back to you, Deanna.
Do you think that's real?
I'm not sure.
Now we have Austin with the Iran nuclear deal.
Thanks, Deanna. Republicans versus Democrats, they can tear the country apart with their fighting, but with foreign relations, it only gets worse. What will happen with the Iran nuclear deal? This year, the Iranian government asked for a deal. This will grant the Mideastern country centrifuges or other items. Those things can make it so they can use nuclear power, or bombs. Some people ask why they would use it as a weapon. This is why. There are two main Islamic branches, the Sunni and the Shiite. Unlike them, Iran is Shiite. If Iran gets angry at them, which there is a higher likelihood, they may attack. To create power or a bomb, they would need high-tech tools. This is why Iran is asking the U.S. There are two ways that they could do it. One way is fission. That is when you put two or more atoms into a centrifuge. The power will collide the atoms, unleashing an immense amount of energy. Another way is thermonuclear. That is when the nucleus of an atom is simply split and releases an astronomical amount of energy. Either of these ways can be dangerous, yet useful. Iran claims it will use the tools for energy, but some are skeptical. President Netanyahu, the leader of Israel, spoke out on this at the Capitol on March 3rd. It is a very bad deal, he says. The president did not even invite him, yet many Americans agree with him, like the Republicans. "This is certainly not acceptable to me," said Republican Senator Tom Cotton. Then the Red Party did an unusual move, adding to their strong dislike of the deal. They sent a letter to the Iranian government asking them not to ask any more for a deal. Some like the idea of the deal because of possible economic growth. The president and many other Democrats agree there should be a deal. The Secretary of State works with foreign relations. Since the Secretary of State is in charge by the president, they are trying to make a deal actually happen with many conferences. The Iranian government sets deadlines, but the U.S. makes them go on and on into the year, still trying to decide. So, what do you think? Back to you, Deanna.
This sounds so dangerous.
More than that, it's horrible.
Here comes Abby with the universal holidays.
Thanks, Deanna. You've heard of Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, and other holidays, but what about the ones you haven't heard of? How about Diwali, also known as the Festival of Lights, that's celebrated in India? During Diwali, people celebrate the triumph over good versus evil. People celebrate by exchanging gifts, watching colorful fireworks, getting blessings from the goddess of wealth, and lighting up candles all around their houses. That's just a few of the things the 5-day celebration has to offer. It sounds fun, and you possibly didn't even know about the holiday. Another fun festival in India is Holi. Holi is a colorful festival greeting the arrival of spring. Holi is celebrated in the month of March. A fun fact is that races like the Color Run and Run or Die are inspired by Holi. Want to know why? During Holi, the whole country of India dresses up in festive colors and people throw gulag and a beer at each other. You may ask, what is gulag and a beer? They are the color substances people throw at each other. Children like to throw water balloons at each other and just random people on the streets. To wrap up the wonderful Holi festival, cities, towns, and villages plant beautiful flowers all around to make India vibrant and fresh. Both of these festivals are fun and interesting. There are many other fun holidays all around the world. Take a trip and go visit. Back to you, Austin.
I learned quite a bit from that.
I never knew those holidays even existed.
Now we have Deanna with the time capsule in Boston.
A few months ago, in January, everyone came racing down to see the time capsule accidentally found in Boston at the State House. How did they find it? Well, let's find out. According to History.com, the capsule placed by Paul Revere and Samuel Adams in 1795 was first removed from the State House cornerstone in 1855 during emergency repairs to the building. The capsule contents were placed in a copper box, replacing the original cowhide container. It was then reburied and did not see the light of day again until January 6, 2015, while workers were repairing a leak at the State House. They spotted the time capsule and called in the staff from the Museum of Fine Arts to check it out. Workers removed the cornerstone from the building and propped it up on wooden blocks so that one of the museum's conservators, P.M. Hatfield, could slide underneath. Hatfield painstakingly tapped away at the block from 10:30 p.m. to 4:30 a.m., taking periodic breaks in between to romp away from the wind and snow. As she worked, tiny coins fell out of the plaster covering the time capsule. In 1855, public officials had tossed these silver coins in for good luck during the reburial ceremony. The rusty copper box that finally emerged was a little bit smaller than a size of a cigar box. State police transported the box to the Museum of Fine Arts, where it will be x-rayed to determine what is inside the box. It should be very interesting to find out what is actually inside the box. Back to you, Austin.
I wish I could see it.
I saw it on a piece of paper.
Good enough.
Well, that is all for today. WATK, have a great day.
Now presenting WHAT.
Hi, and welcome to the WHAT News segment.
Our names are Talita
And Alexis.
Our news stories today are
Noah with the NHL draft,
Naomi with the outrageous amount of snow this winter,
Haley with the upcoming cell phone rules while driving,
Arthur with the illegal sale of elephant's ivory on the black market,
Emily with the dangers of texting and driving,
Alexis with the worries and problems that would occur if bees went extinct,
and Talita with the tragic melting of the glaciers and how it will affect everything. First up is Noah with the NHL draft.
Thanks, Alexis. Do you like hockey, or are you interested in learning about the 2015 NHL draft? Do you know who will go number 1 in the 2015 NHL draft? Well, I'll tell you. It looks like it will be the 18-year-old Connor McDavid. He is outstanding. Some people even think he could turn out to be better than Sidney Crosby, who may be the top player in the NHL right now. I think Connor McDavid will be more used to the pace of the NHL since he's playing for the Erie Otters of the Ontario Hockey League. There is a minimum age requirement to play in the Ontario Hockey League, and he is one of only 3 players in history to be granted exceptional player status and allowed in the league a year early. Canadian junior leagues typically offer tough competition and are similar to the NHL because they don't require a full face mask, so he would be more used to the pace and the contact of the NHL. The team expected to be lucky enough to get Connor McDavid was the Buffalo Sabres, since they finished the season in last place. Buffalo fans gave up on the season early and rooted for them to lose so they could draft McDavid. They even had posters showing his face. However, in an unlucky turn of events, the Edmonton Oilers won the annual draft lottery and were awarded the number 1 pick. So McDavid is likely headed to Edmonton, not Buffalo. Instead, Buffalo gets the number 2 pick and will likely take Jack Eichel, a freshman from Boston University. Although Eichel goes to college in Boston and is currently wearing a full cage, he has lots of experience in international competition and will make Edmonton's decision extremely difficult. On a personal note, Jack Eichel is a local player from Chelmsford, Massachusetts, so it's exciting to see a future great come out of local youth hockey. But that's not all. Right behind Jack Eichel is Noah Hanifin, another player for Boston that is only 18 years old. He's currently a freshman playing for Boston College. It's surprising for 2 people in the United States to go so high in the draft. Skating over to you, Alexis.
They must be great players to be accepted in the NHL at that age.
Yeah, it might be cool to see how they play in their first games.
Speaking of cool, our next story is Naomi with the snow up in Boston.
Thank you, Talita. The people of Boston had to do a lot of shoveling this winter. According to the National Weather Service, Boston broke the all-time record for snow with a total of 110.6 inches. This officially made 2014 and 2015 the snowiest and most costliest winter of all for the city. Mayor Marty Walsh announced that the city spent over $35 million on snow removal, which includes buying salt, sand, snow melters, and other equipment, and paying the plow drivers. Boston residents had to stack plastic chairs in order to save their parking spaces. 8 billion cubic feet of snow. Where do you put it? Boston has been using snow farms to get rid of a lot of it. Any vacant lot soon became a mountain full of snow. Once the lots are full, the city faced a major problem. Should they melt the snow with expensive machines or dump the toxic mess into the Boston Harbor? A possible pollution nightmare. Boston schools are greatly impacted by all the winter storms. Originally, the kids were supposed to get out of school on June 19th, but now they may not get their summer vacation until someday in July. Good luck, children of Boston. Back to Alexis and Toledo.
They must be. Just think about that weather's making me cold.
Then again, we've had quite the winter season ourselves.
Yeah, we have.
Anyway, now to Haley's story about the new law of using phones while driving.
Thanks, Alexis. Have you heard about the new laws going into effect soon? That law is collision driving. Collision driving has killed over 3,360 people in the past 4 years in New Hampshire. Governor Maggie Hassan has signed into law a statewide ban on handheld cell phone use by drivers. This takes effect July 1st, 2015. The fines range from $100 to $500. The Liberton State Rep Dan McGuire has filed legislation for 2015 that will repeal the new cell phone law and replace it with a ban that applies only to drivers under age 18. The ban does not extend to hands-free devices for adults. Passenger vehicles, school buses, and limos are banned from using handheld communication devices. Emergency calls are accepted with the use of cell phones. Drivers would still be allowed to use Bluetooth devices or cell systems built into their vehicle, as long as it only requires the push of a button. Drivers could also pre-enter a destination into a cell phone navigation system and listen to the system while driving. The DOT, or Department of Transportation, is responsible for planning and coordinating federal transportation projects. They have been using electronic bulletin boards to fight distracted driving. The message they brought to you is, don't wreck it all with one text or call. Be aware of other drivers. Be safe. Back to you, Alexis and Toledo.
You don't know how many times I've been riding on the highway in the car and seen people on their phones.
Yeah, it's surprising how people think that what they're doing on their phones is more important than their own life.
Possibly even someone else's. Sadly, I'm not so sure the law will even work. Like, for example, the law on hunting elephants doesn't stop poachers.
That is exactly what our next story is about. Here is Arthur with the illegal sale of elephant's ivory on the black market.
Thanks, Toledo. I bet most of you didn't know that 35,000 African elephants are killed annually for illegal ivory trade on the black market. Heaviest hit part of Africa is Central Africa. Approximately 64% of the elephant population has declined. Africa is trading their ivory to Asia for $240 a test. So for a whole elephant, the price is $480. But China's buying tests for over $2,000. The reasons China want ivory are: 1, some think it is lucky; 2, some use it to make themselves seem rich; 3, people can wait until prices rise then sell the ivory; 4, it can be used as bribery. In just 3 years, poachers have killed 100,000 African elephants. About 104 die each day. Out of 157 poacher-related cases in just 3 years, less than 5% have been prosecuted and only 3 convicted and sentenced to jail. So poachers are not stopping because they're not afraid of being punished. Many organizations are trying to stop the slaughter of the elephants. Here are a few: Wildlife Conservation Society, African Wildlife Foundation, World Wildlife Fund, International Fund for Animal Welfare, African Parks Network, Association of Zoos and Aquariums, Frankfurt Zoological Center, Freeland Foundation, National Geographic, Save the Elephants, Wild Aid, and the Wildlife Direct. What these organizations are doing to help is put up reservations and sanctuaries, holding protests, and convincing others not to buy any ivory products. Stampeding. Back to you, Toledo.
Aw, poor little things. Well, they're not little, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, people do terrible things such as texting while driving.
That catastrophe of an act is against the law and is extremely dangerous. To talk about texting driving's dangers is Emily.
Thanks, Alexis. Have you ever seen anyone texting while driving? In a report written by the National Safety Council, it is said that using a phone while driving leads to 1.6 million crashes each year. Texting while driving causes 1 out of every 4 accidents in the United States every day. The sad fact is that 11 teens die a day while behind the wheel. It is very tragic for adults and children that nearly 3,000 deaths and 330,000 injuries occur each year from texting while driving accidents. According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, teens spend 10% of their time out of their lane while texting and driving. 11 out of 50 states still haven't banned texting while driving. You should never text while driving because it is very dangerous and you can get in a car crash or even lose your life. According to AT&T's teen driving survey, almost all teenagers agree that texting while driving is dangerous, but 43% of them do it anyway. 19% of all drivers of all ages admit to surfing on the web on their phone while driving. 40% of teens have said they have been in a car while the driver used a cell phone. These are all reasons we should put an end to texting while driving. Back to you, Alexis.
It is astonishing how people are so hooked onto their phones they can't even bother to stop while driving.
You'd think that responsible people that are entrusted in the privilege of being able to drive would know better.
They're busy as bees while texting away on their mobile devices, which reminds me, here is Alexis with the worries and problems that would occur if bees went extinct.
Thanks, Talita. Imagine a world without most common clothing, many medicines, and lots of food. All these things would be lost without bees. This is possibly our future. Bees. Most people overlook them, but they are an enormous part of our ecosystem. Bee populations have been declining since 2006, says pollination.com. If bees went extinct, our world would change drastically. Suspected reasons for this problem are that cell phone towers interfere with the bees' navigation, as well as poison from herbicides. Some of the things we lose that would most impact our society are honey, obviously, canola, which is used for fuel and cooking oil, and many plant-based medicines, such as morphine, a painkiller. We'd also have less cotton, less biofuel, and less products from cattle, such as milk and meat. This would be because the alfalfa plant, that is a part of a cow's meal, needs to be pollinated. Less alfalfa could lead to higher prices for meat and milk. As for fruits and veggies, the list is long. According to naturalsociety.com, we would lose lots of apples, nectarines, strawberries, onions, cherries, lemons, coffee, broccoli, cocoa, and grapes, just to name a few. On a brighter note, beetles and butterflies can also pollinate, but less efficiently. Also, wheat and rice would not be affected because they don't require pollination. Either way, bees are very important, so maybe we should all put down our swatters and let the bees complete the pertinent tasks that help our world. Back to you, Talita.
Wow, that's a lot we'd lose.
That's not the only thing that we could lose in the future. Our coastlines are also at risk. Here to talk about this matter is Talita.
Thank you, Alexis. Will our world ever be underwater? Well, the answer is no, but our coastlines will be very different. Imagine what would happen if Greenland, Iceland, and Antarctica melt. We would have major flooding. In fact, the water would be raised 230 feet higher than usual. However, not all of the ice is going to melt, says Ology.com. The Antarctica ice cap, where most of the ice exists, has survived much warmer times. 1913 was the hottest year so far. The concern is that portions of Greenland and West Antarctica ice caps just may all disappear. We don't know how much or how quickly this could happen because we don't know exactly how it will happen. That is because ice does not just melt. Ice actually flows down valleys like rivers of water. The problem is that we don't completely understand the factors that control how rapidly the ice flows, and thus enters the ocean, says planetary scientist Edmund Mathis. What causes this? Global warming? If this happens, only some parts of the states will be underwater, like Florida, parts of New Hampshire, Alaska, and many more. If this happens, Alaska will be the size of Texas. Imagine that. We can't stop this from happening. It's the way of nature. When will this happen? How long will it take to melt? We don't know how rapidly our sea level could rise. So get your buckets ready for a flood. Back to you, Alexis.
It's scary to think that such horrible things could really happen.
Yep, that's just the way things are, I guess.
Anyway, this is the end of the WHAT news segment.
This is Talita
and Alexis
signing off.
Tuning in live from the station WPCN News. Welcome to WPCN News. This is Princeton. I'm Caitlin. Today we'll have Abby with child hunger,
Ashley with the weather,
Damien with sports,
Kyle with the withdrawal of U.S. troops,
then Yas with a story on cloning,
Caitlin with the debate over Londonderry Community Auditorium,
and finally Princeton with ISIS.
First, we'll start off with Abby talking about child hunger.
Princeton, did you know that 1 out of 5 kids in the U.S. are struggling with child hunger? People think that kids are starving because the population is growing so fast that the food is becoming scarce, but it's actually just because they can't afford it. There are 35.5 million people in the U.S. who are below the poverty line. That's $24,250 for a family of 4. According to the U.S. government, 38 million people are food insecure, which means the big part of food insecurity relates to the uncertainties of daily life. People go hungry because they have to pay for sudden emergencies, such as an emergency visit to the hospital, a car repair, or maybe a loss of a job. If you have a car and you're living below the poverty line, what are you going to do when your car breaks down and you either have to have it towed or buy a new part? That's not going to be in the budget when you can barely save enough money to buy some food. Some people are trying to prevent child hunger at schools. They organize canned food drives and donations. There are programs too. For instance, No Kid Hungry, Feed the Children, and Hunger and Livelihoods that try to prevent child hunger. At some schools, they give a free breakfast for kids who don't have food at their houses. Children who are poorly nourished suffer up to 160 days of illness each year. Isn't it sad when you have to think about kids your age that have to deal with child hunger and poverty? If this is a cause you want to help, you can join an organization and have your own canned food drive. Do you want to help? I know I do. Back to you, Caitlin.
Well, that was very interesting.
Yes, it was. I feel so sorry for the children who have to live like that.
Definitely. At least many people are working together to help fight against it.
Now to Ashley with the stormy winter we had.
Thanks, Princeton. Roads were closed, traffic everywhere, cars on the side of the road. Sound familiar? It does to me, because this past winter there has been a series of snowstorms dropping large amounts of snow that took down power lines, created hazardous driving conditions, and closed schools. According to WMUR, the state of New Hampshire had spent $20.9 million of its $40 million winter budget in the first 10 weeks of winter. Part of the budget was spent on salt and sand for the icy roads after the freezing nights froze the roads. Sometimes plows would push snow into snowbanks at the end of driveways, and when a person would try to back out of their driveway, they wouldn't be able to see if there was a car coming down the road. Another large amount of the budget was spent on snow removal to allow people to get to work and school. After the first 10 weeks of winter, many towns and cities were wondering if they would have enough money left over for other heavy snowstorms. The National Weather Service states that since 1978, this was a record amount of snow during a 30-day period. There has been snowstorms that hit New Hampshire 3 Mondays in a row. Kids didn't go to school on a Monday ever since before Black History Day, and have to learn more during the summer. The storms affected other parts of New England as well. In Boston, Mayor Marty Walsh asked Bostonians to stay indoors until the worst was over. Some Bostonians said that they are leaving and going to warmer climates because their kids were stuck indoors and couldn't get out to go to school. The snow caused great damage to the city. In some parts of the city, people couldn't even get out of their houses to go to work. The amount of snow that hit New Hampshire hurt our economy. There was a lot of damaged houses all over New England. Were you tired of all the snowstorms that came one after another? I know I was. Back to you, Caitlin.
I hope we don't have another winter like that next year.
Just wait. We'll be on this winter back once it's steaming hot in the summer.
Oh, yes.
Now we have Damien with sports.
Thank you, Caitlin. Do you know who J.J. Watt is? J.J. Watt is an American football defensive end for the Houston Texans of the NFL. He first became passionate for playing football when he was in the 5th grade. He stopped playing hockey because it was interfering with the schedule. He went to Pewaukee High School as a tight end and a defensive end. During his senior year at Pewaukee High School, he accumulated a total of 399 receiving yards, 26 catches, and 5 touchdowns. He was drafted 11th overall by the Houston Texans in the 2011 NFL Draft. In 2010, which is his last year at the University of Wisconsin, J.J. Watt won the Lott Impact Trophy. The Lott Impact Trophy is presented annually to the College Football Impact Player of the Year. J.J. Watt had 20.5 sacks in 2012, which is the same year he was Defensive Player of the Year. Then in 2014, he got 20.5 sacks again, and that gave him the record for being the first NFL player to get 20 or more sacks in multiple seasons. In J.J. Watt's 17th game in the 2014 season, he got 3 sacks on Blake Bortles, who is the Jacksonville Jaguars quarterback. He has 57 career sacks, said NFL.com. That is 121st in the most sack records. The best is 200 sacks by Bruce Smith. If J.J. Watt keeps playing good and gets a lot of sacks, he could come close to getting 200 sacks or even get more than 200 sacks. J.J. Watt is an outstanding NFL player to watch, so you might like him too. Back to you, Caitlin.
That was really cool.
I found that so informational about J.J. Watson and didn't know a lot about him.
Next is Kyle with the withdrawal of U.S. troops.
Thank you, Princeton. Do you think President Obama should stop the withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan? President Obama announced on March 24th of 2015 that he's slowing the withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan. President Obama wants to keep the troops in Afghanistan to help stabilize the country so the country won't collapse for the new president of Afghanistan, President Mohammad Ashraf Ghani. This war has been the longest U.S. war in history, surpassing the Vietnam War. The pace of the U.S. troop drawdown was the focus of day-long White House meetings of March 24th, 2015. On the job only 6 months, President Ghani is trying to make the case that he is a reliable partner worthy of American support for President Obama. President Ghani is the last best hope to make good on the president's promise to end America's longest war by the time he leaves office. President Ghani's government asked the president to keep more U.S. troops in his country longer as Afghan forces brace for a tough spring fighting season and contend with Islamic State fighters looking to recruit on their soil. The original U.S. military plan was to bring the U.S. force down to 5,550 by the end of the year. The current force of 9,800 troops will remain through the end of 2015. President Obama stresses that the specific trajectory for 2016 will be established later this year, and he still wants to stick to the plan of reducing the force through a Kabul-based embassy presence by the time he leaves office. President Obama plans to bring the troops home from Afghanistan by 2016, and he stresses that his goal of finishing the drawdown by the end of his term has not changed yet. Back to you, Princeton.
That was pretty cool. I hope President Obama removes them soon.
It would be great if he could, then all the soldiers would be safe. Next we have Yash with a story about human cloning.
Thanks, Princeton. Human cloning, will it change our world? Human cloning is the creation of genetically identical copy of a human. The term is generally used to refer to the artificial human cloning, which is the reproduction of human cells and tissue. It does not refer to the natural conception and delivery of identical twins. The possibility of human cloning has raised controversies. These ethical concerns have promoted several nations to pass laws regarding human cloning and its legally. But some countries still have no laws against human cloning. Clones could possibly be used for good or questionable purposes, perhaps even illegal activities. Another reason people do not like human cloning because they think it is playing God and going against the rules of nature. Clones could possibly be used for good intentions, such as replacing an injured or diseased body part. Whatever people do with this cloning issue, it will definitely change our world. Back to you, Caitlin.
Imagine having a clone that looks just like you.
That seems really cool. I just hope the clone doesn't make any trouble. Next is Caitlin talking about the debate over Londonderry Community Auditorium.
Thank you, Princeton. Lights, camera, action. Debate over Londonderry Community Auditorium is on. The New England Associations of Schools and Colleges recommended an auditorium as a continued accreditation of the district. The Community Auditorium Subcommittee was formed, given $25,000 to hire an architect to investigate size, pricing, and location of the facility. The subcommittee came up with a proposal for the 2015 March ballot to allocate $500,000 for architect fees to draw up plans for an auditorium. The Daily News quoted Tony DeFrancisco, subcommittee chairman. The reason for this auditorium is for the music and drama departments to have a local performance space. Also for a larger group of students to experience the classes in a lecture hall. Finally, for the comfort of parents watching the children perform with the school band or chorus. Although the capacity of the auditorium would accommodate much larger classes than high school and middle school, it would also be used for events, guest speakers, and perhaps a class of older students who are interested in an introduction to a lecture hall experience to prepare for college, he said. A few weeks after the vote, Londonderry Times, Derry News, and the Union Leader had the answers in an article from the vote. The vote for the $500,000 for architect fees to drop plans was defeated. I had the opportunity to interview Mr. DeFrancisco. I asked him to tell me what's happening right now since the vote was defeated. He said, right now, since the vote is defeated, all that's happening is up to the school board. The committee's job is all over. Now it's up to the school board. What do you want them to do? Do you want them to try something else or do the vote again? I don't know, but I hopefully find out in the future. Back to you, Princeton.
That was great. I sure do hope we get an auditorium one day.
Definitely. It'd be a great addition to the community. Finally, at Princeton with a story about ISIS.
ISIS. ISIS is Al-Qaeda all over again, but even worse. Supposedly it started in a military prison in Iraq in the year 1999, according to a CBS News investigation. 12 of ISIS's leaders spent time in Buqa, a military prison in Iraq, including the man who is the leader at the moment, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. The original members of ISIS were Islamic extremists and Baathists who were followers of Saddam Hussein. 11 years later, and ISIS is committing violent acts that no other human would think to do. ISIS is well funded. In fact, they've acquired between $865 million to $2 billion in the past year. Most of their money comes from oil they have stolen when looting and pillaging, says CNN News. According to arthistoryarchive.com, ISIS is also stealing famous Iraqi paintings that are between 50K to 200K each. Nearly 40 countries are helping in the effort to stop ISIS. The US and France are sending concentrated airstrikes on ISIS. Also, there are ground troops provided by Iraq and Egypt. Some countries like Canada and Turkey are also providing military training and or equipment. Still others like Saudi Arabia and the Dutch are helping by providing intelligence or stopping the flow of money to ISIS. Hopefully this will end soon and all the people of the world will be safe. Back to you, Caitlin.
That is scary. I hope it never happens to us, but I feel so bad for the people who have to deal with it.
Yes, it must be so hard to focus on what you're doing with all that happening around you.
Now before we sign off, it's time for the reclap.
In this segment, we learned all about child hunger and how people are working together to fight against it. Our stormy winter, J.J. Watt, and the withdrawal of U.S. troops.
We also learned about human cloning, the debate over Londonderry Community Auditorium, and finally, ISIS.
So thank you for taking your time to join us and hear what we have to tell you.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.